Here on Chaos Gaming, we do a lot of positive videos and we do some negative videos, but today it's time to show some love where it is earned. Everybody has their own favorite gaming developer, but have you ever found a developer who can do no wrong? A studio whose worst games, well, they're still pretty good. Well, today on Chaos Gaming, make sure you're following the page with your notifications fully turned on. Let's check out some developers with zero bad games, no bad games in their library. You let me know in the comments who your favorite developer is. Do me a favor, drop a little like, and let's kick things off with BLUEPOINT. Now, this is a rather new studio you may have never heard of. They started out mainly just doing ports, but since have branched out to their own projects, and they're really good. BLUEPOINT was founded in 2006. Their first ever game was the PS3 arcade game Blast Factor, which it wasn't anything great, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. Then BLUEPOINT started working directly with Sony on remasters and ports of their old games. They made the Metal Gear Solid HD collection. They made the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, and they made the God of War collection, and those were enough to give them the clout for some bigger projects. In 2018, they released the remake of Shadow of the Colossus for the PS4, and in 2020, they released the remake of Demon's Souls for the PS5. They are one of my favorite studio stories in gaming. They started out doing ports, and now they're up to full-fledged remakes. So far, they have a nearly perfect track record, and who knows what they'll do once they start making their own IPs. Hopefully they don't screw it up. Next up, Obsidian Entertainment. Founded in 2003, they hit the ground running almost immediately. The first game they ever developed was Knights of the Old Republic. Come on. Come on. And then 6 years later, they gave us the timeless Fallout New Vegas. That's just bang, bang, back to back. A lot of people even seem to forget that Obsidian also developed the super underrated Pillars of Eternity and the much-loved South Park Stick of Truth. Now, most recently, they've been supporting the Outer Worlds and are currently working on a fantasy RPG called Avowed. Now, despite being a rather young company still, they have a stellar track record. The only bad game I guess I could say in their lineup was Alpha Protocol, but I wouldn't even call it a bad game. It's just divisive. It has a cult following today, so there you go. I think Obsidian belongs on this list, and I'm super excited to see what they do next. Next up, INSOMNIAC Games. They have found a ton of recent success as a Sony developer, but they've been in the game for a lot longer than that. And while they broke out big time in the last few years, they've been extremely consistent throughout their entire career. INSOMNIAC was founded in '94, and they found a ton of early success with Spyro the Dragon games on the original PlayStation. Then, once the PS2 rolled around, they gave us the excellent Ratchet & Clank series. They were also behind the extremely underappreciated Resistance series and the criminally underrated Sunset Overdrive. And of course, we can't forget the PS4 Spider-Man games they developed in recent years. The only outlier in INSOMNIAC's library is Fuse, which was a third-person shooter from 2013 that most people agreed was pretty underwhelming, but I don't think anybody would say the game was flat-out bad. Next up, now do not give me hate. Don't do it. Epic Games. Before you dislike the video, let me explain myself. Epic Games has gotten themselves in a lot of hot water recently due to their Epic Games Store, as well as the general hatred the internet has for Fortnite. But when you take a step back and you look at all the games in Epic's library, you can't say they're bad. I don't think you can, at least. Epic started out their career with PC puzzle and shooter games, and then in '98, they gave us Unreal, a revolutionary 3D first-person shooter they followed up with Unreal Tournament, one of my favorites of all time, and it helped define the arena shooter genre as a whole. Then, in the mid-2000s, they broke out again. Gears of War, and of course, Fortnite in the late 2010s. So sure, Fortnite isn't for everybody, but it clearly made an impact on the gaming world, and you really can't call it a bad game. I guess you can, but you know what I mean. They've always been known for their Unreal Engine, but in terms of games, I don't think they've technically made a bad one. Next up, ID Software. Now, they are seen by many as the grandfather of the FPS genre thanks to their innovations made with Wolfenstein 3D in '92 and, of course, Doom the following year. Then, in '96, we got Quake. And most recently, they've been treating us to an excellent rebooted Doom series. Now, throughout the years, ID Software has continued to reinvent the FPS genre. And even though their lesser remembered games are far and above the industry standard at the time, Rage, Doom 3, they're still solid. I wouldn't call them bad. They're just not quite as good as the classics. And need I remind everybody, Doom 3 and Rage are two of the best looking games of their time. They've had peaks and valleys. But even in their valleys, from a technical perspective, I don't think they've ever made a bad game. Now we reach number 5. Yes, ROCKSTAR is here. Another studio. Now, it's had its peaks and valleys, but when people say a ROCKSTAR game is bad, they usually are just saying it in relative to their masterpieces. I would go through Rockstar's library, but if you think, I mean, honestly, I think you guys already know. GTA, Red Dead Redemption, Bully, Max Payne, and then maybe a couple lesser remember ones like Midnight Club, Manhunt, LA Noire. Rockstar's attention to detail is the best, and their game design has changed over the years, but they never miss a mark. Now, personally, I would love to see Rockstar venture out into other genres again. Remember back in the 360 days when they were making open world games and third-person shooters and racing games and table tennis games? I mean, modern Rockstar seems to be hyper-focused on open world games, and that's okay. I'd love to see them step out of the box again. They'd probably pop off something really cool. At number 4, Black Isle Studios. They're not around anymore. They went bankrupt in the early 2000s. However, if you're an older gamer or you're into old school RPGs, you remember them. They were founded in 96, had a string of big PC hits. Fallout, Fallout 2, Planescape, Torment, Icewind Dale, and they even published the original Baldur's Gate. Black Isle was one of the most underappreciated developers of their time. I mean, people still point to their Fallout and Planescape games as some of the best PC RPGs ever. Now, the studio closed in 2003, but many of the developers went on to found Obsidian Entertainment, who we talked about early. So thankfully, their legacy lives on in some ways. Black Isle was one of the best RPG developers of the 90s, and now Obsidian is one of the best RPG developers in the 2010s. At number 3. Now look, I know a lot of people really didn't like The Last of Us 2, and okay, I mean, it's still a well-crafted game. Naughty Dog. Now, if you're to take Last of Us 2 out of Naughty Dog's lineup, can you find another game you could even remotely call bad? Naughty Dog was formed in 1984. They first broke out with the Crash Bandicoot series on the PS1. Now, Jak and Daxter series PS2. Uncharted series PS3. And of course, Last of Us, which many of us still call one of the best games ever made. Now, they've been in controversial spotlights over the last year or so due to the extremely split reception to The Last of Us 2. But like I said, the game itself is well crafted. And if you took the game out of the convo, Naughty Dog's record is spotless. I would love to see the studio take a few more risks, but I have no doubt they're going to be trying something new in the future. I mean, Uncharted's over, Last of Us is over, at least for now. What's next? Action game? Maybe a return to 3D platformers? I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm here for it. At number 2 today, one of the most influential studios in gaming history, Valve. Now, they've been the unofficial face of PC gaming for decades. The first game Valve ever made was Half-Life, which completely changed single-player gaming as you and me know it. Then Team Fortress, then Counter-Strike, then Day of Defeat, then Half-Life 2, and Gmod. Come on, Portal, Team Fortress 2, I go on all day. Left 4 Dead. I mean, it does. The list goes on forever. Now, I know they've taken a hiatus, but they came back swinging in 2020 with Half-Life Alyx, which is easily one of the best VR games on the market. You may be expecting me to talk some crap about Artifact, but the game wasn't horrible. Just wasn't what we wanted from Valve at that time. If you go back and play Artifact today, it's not bad. It's just far below Valve's extremely high standards. They are one of the best developers in the industry, and honestly, not many blemishes. But at number 1 today, the cleanest record goes to FromSoftware. Now, they've been in business since the 80s. They're best known for the Dark Souls franchise, as well as for the single-handedly transforming the action RPG genre. They initially found success with the Armored Core franchise. Then in 2009, they released a little game called Demon Souls. Then in 2011, they released just a little follow-up called Dark Souls. From that point, FromSoftware was one of the main names in gaming. The unique combat, the storytelling, the world building of Dark Souls became the new standard for the action RPG genre. Then, the studio followed it up with Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and the upcoming Elden Ring. I mean, it's one of the most consistent studios in gaming, and if you ask me, I think they're deserving of the number 1 spot today. If you agree, awesome. If you don't, tell me who should be number 1 on today's list, and I'll see you soon.